As a black girl, I always have to try harder to survive. Not only is it hard work, I also have to take care of my elderly parents, for whom I am the only support. The money I earn is just enough to cover my living expenses, but I never dared to complain. I just threw myself into work, working non-stop. I don't remember the last time I had a proper day off. Working in a restaurant kitchen pulled me into a non-stop spiral. Every day I wake up at 5 a.m., prepare ingredients, check orders, then start a long day in the heat of the stove, the sound of knives and cutting boards clashing together, and the hustle and bustle of the restaurant. I have no time for myself, no moment to stop to feel life. Tonight, there were more guests than usual. The chef quickly gave the order, "Go get more ingredients from the warehouse." I nodded, quickly wiped the sweat from my forehead, and walked out to the car. The storage warehouse was located quite far from the restaurant, and it was raining heavily. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, trying to see through the misty water. But then bright headlights from a truck rushed in, tearing through the dark night. The rain poured down like cold, sharp knives, blurring the windshield in chaos. I was startled. My heart was pounding. My foot reflexively applied the brake. But the slippery road betrayed me. The wheel lost control, spun wildly, and crashed into a large puddle of water on the side of the road. The truck let out a long, shrill whistle. In an instant, I saw the driver's panicked face behind the condensed glass. Everything slowed down. A second, 2 seconds, then the sound of metal crashing through the night. The terrible force of the impact threw me forward, the seat belt tightening on my chest like a pincer. I felt the coldness of the rain pouring into the car compartment, the burning smell of the airbags exploding, and a sharp pain running down my spine. My head hit the glass door hard. Flashes of light flashed and rotated in my mind like dancing ghostly flames. Breathing gradually weakened. Everything seemed to sink into a mist. Everything happened so fast, but it's also too slow. And then darkness swallowed me. But I don't disappear. I found myself floating high above, looking down at the crumpled car, my body motionless in the driver's seat. The rain still poured down like whips tearing into the night, but no one left. Passers-by ran to me. Some took their coats to cover me from the cold rain. Some tried to shake me awake, their voices mixed with the sound of the rain like desperate pleas. In the distance, the red and blue lights of police cars and ambulances flashed through the thick rain. The siren echoed throughout the wet road. The medical staff rushed down. They crouched next to me, their hands quickly checking my pulse, their eyes tense. I saw them put me on a stretcher, raindrops splashing from the wheels of the ambulance as it sped away through the dark night. I want to tell them that I'm still here. I see it all. I hear it all. But no sound came out. I could only watch, like a ghost, witnessing my own life as strangers fought to hold on. I woke up in a completely strange space. Around me is an endless space. No more cramped restaurant walls. No more heat from the stove or the echoing sound of knives and chopping boards. The sky here is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not blue, but a constantly moving strip of light, like luminous streams weaving through layers of space. The ground beneath my feet is not really ground, but a transparent surface, reflecting distant images like forgotten memories. The atmosphere is quiet but not lifeless. It carries a feeling of serenity, as light as the breath of the universe itself. In the distance, there were giant gates made of light, sparkling like millions of dancing crystals. It all seemed outside the rules of the world I knew. I stood in a space filled with light, gentler and more peaceful than anywhere I had ever known. In front of me, the light suddenly became dazzling, spreading like the sun exploding in the air. From within that light, a tall figure slowly appeared, with a majestic yet gentle appearance, as if he had been here since the beginning of the universe. A golden halo surrounded him, gently but strongly, like an eternal fire burning in the soul realm. My heart was pounding. A strange feeling spread through me, a vague fear, but at the same time comfort, a deep, indescribable joy. I wanted to run closer, but my legs turned to stone. All thoughts in my head seemed to stop, leaving only pure awe and admiration. His eyes looked at me. No blame, no judgment, but full of love and understanding. It was as if he knew all the suffering, all the exhaustion I had endured. I felt a warmth enveloping me, a strength I had never known. I came here to see the truth. His voice rang out, not with a sound, but seemed to reach straight into my mind. I am Jesus, and I will reveal to you what the world has hidden. I wanted to speak, wanted to ask, but I couldn't say anything. My chest was filled with conflicting emotions. Part of me trembled before his greatness, but another part wanted to kneel down, bursting with happiness at seeing him. You have come here to see the truth. I am Jesus, and I will reveal to you what the world has hidden. Somehow I knew I couldn't run away. I was silent, waiting. Jesus reached out, and immediately the space around me turned. A swirling whirlwind of light swept me into a flow of buried memories and truths. I saw an ancient city, golden towers sparkling in the sun, white stone streets reflecting like mirrors. In the heart of the city, Black people wearing regal robes walked with an aura full of majesty and power. They were not oppressed people, but scholars, prophets, warriors, and priests leading a brilliant civilization. Then the image changed. I saw giant ships, chains clanking as those people were tied up, taken onto ships and deprived of their freedom. I saw hands raised, eyes filled with horror and pain. The prayers echo in the vast ocean, blending into the fierce waves but never being submerged. I saw white cotton fields where once royal people now bowed their heads under the whip, working themselves to exhaustion. But even in that darkness, the light did not go out. They sing, they pray, they hold fast to a faith that cannot be extinguished. Even though they were beaten and exploited, they still kept their souls. Jesus looked at me, his voice rang out like a prophetic word. They are my chosen people, but the world has rewritten their history. The image changed again. I saw struggles breaking out everywhere. The streets were filled with strong footsteps. Slogans shouted like thunder, shaking the whole earth. Men and women are no longer afraid. They held hands, forming a resilient wall, their eyes shining with determination. No one bowed their heads anymore. No one accepts lies anymore. I see the flames of awakening spreading. One person stood up, then 10 people, then thousands, millions of people. They are no longer forgotten victims. They are warriors, keepers of the truth. Songs of freedom rang out, mingling with the beats of hearts reclaiming their lost identity. Statues of oppressors fall, pages of false history books are torn out. In their eyes, I see the light of a new future, a future where they are no longer defined by chains, but by the greatness of their ancestors. They walk with pride, heads held high, hearts beating to the same rhythm of freedom. And I know the journey to reclaiming my identity has not just begun, it will never be extinguished. I saw strong men and women raising their fists, not to attack, but to declare that they would no longer bow. I saw the fires of awakening burning in the eyes of children, souls reclaiming the truth that had been taken from them. A painful feeling welled up in my chest. Why was I never taught about this? Why were these truths hidden from me and so many other generations? Hot tears rolled down my cheeks, not only because of emotion, but also because of endless regret. I feel like I've lost a part of my identity that I should have known a long time ago. I grew up in ignorance, in a world that taught me only chains, but hid the greatness of my ancestors. If I had known early, I could have lived differently, felt more proud, and understood my true value. But now I see, I understand, and I know that I can no longer turn my back on this truth. I see lies spread throughout the world, messages repeated to control thinking and deprive the truth. History books are edited, lectures in schools only talk about pain and chains without mentioning the greatness of our ancestors. I see the media painting a distorted image, turning people who were once prophets, kings, and warriors into weak, hopeless people. I see lies repeated generation after generation, by powerful voices, by systems designed to maintain control. I see that the laws were not created to protect them, but to imprison them in a vicious cycle of poverty, fear, and obedience. I see my enemies sneer at the sight of lost souls, no longer aware of their true heritage. They are taught to doubt themselves, to bow to things that have been predetermined. But I also see a glimmer of light, a silent resistance, an emerging awareness. The truth cannot be buried forever. The enemy was afraid of them, so he rewrote history. He erased their greatness. At that moment, I understood that I had to share this message. Everything is about to change. I suddenly realized that this was more than just a story about forgotten history. This was a call to arms for myself, for everyone who has ever been blinded by lies. This is an affirmation that I am not just a small individual in this world, but a part of something greater, a piece in the larger picture of awakening. I used to think that my life was just long days spent hanging around in a hot kitchen, hours of exhausting, aimless work. But now I understand that every moment of my life has meaning. I am not just chosen to see this truth, I am chosen to act. I was chosen to bring light to those who are still lost in darkness. Jesus turned to me, his eyes gentle but serious. The perspective before us changed. The space around me shattered like broken glass, fragments of light flying and disappearing into nothingness. A golden tornado opened before my eyes, drawing me in as if I were free-falling through mysterious layers of space. Suddenly, I landed in a strange land. All around me was a vast prairie, where the sky was a deep blue unlike any I had ever seen. Massive mountain ranges rise like silent giants. In the distance is a winding river with clear water, reflecting light sparkling like liquid silver. The air here isn't just air, it's filled with energy, an invisible force that flows through my every breath. I see black men and women walking with an undeniable strength and wisdom. I see black men and women walking with an undeniable strength and wisdom. They are not aimless lost souls. They are people with the blood of kings, warriors, people who once led brilliant civilizations. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. "Who are these people, sir?" Jesus smiled. The light in his eyes seemed to glow with a ray of warmth. "They are your ancestors, the people who walked before you, building solid foundations for the world in which you live. They are masters of knowledge, of spirituality, of steadfastness. They are resilient souls who have endured many hurts, but have not lost the light that I have placed in them." He raised his hand, and I saw the image of two men appear in midair. A person wearing a long cloak, holding an ancient scroll, sharp eyes like someone who holds knowledge of the whole world. The other person wore golden armor, held a giant sword, and stood proudly like an undefeated warrior. The first was a great scholar, a defender of the truth, who dedicated his life to preserving knowledge for the next generation. The second was a fearless warrior, willing to stand up against injustice. They were more than just individuals. They were symbols of the qualities that my people always carry within themselves: wisdom and strength, steadfastness and faith. I felt a lump in my throat. But why has the world never taught me about them? Why have I never known these things? Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. His voice was warm but firm. "Because the truth was hidden, but now you see, and it is your responsibility to bring this truth to those who are still sleeping. They are no longer forgotten souls, but bearers of the light of truth. People who are awakening after centuries of being crushed. Fires burned in their eyes, but it wasn't the fire of anger. It was the fire of rebirth. They are no longer forgotten souls, but bearers of the light of truth. People who are awakening after centuries of being crushed. Fires burned in their eyes, but it wasn't the fire of anger. It was the fire of rebirth." I realized that I was standing in the flow of time, witnessing a new page of history being written. No more slaves, no more oppression, only strong, resilient people, ready to take back what was lost. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. "But why are you here?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because you're part of this too." I felt a surge of power flow through my soul, as if the whole world was changing. The outlook darkened. I see a world full of lies, movies, music, media, all creating a false reality. Movies are produced not only for entertainment, but also to plant in our minds a distorted image of ourselves. I see movies that continually portray Black people as criminals, as weaklings, or as unimportant supporting characters. The stories do not speak of their greatness, but only repeat images of failure and suffering. I see music distorted into a tool of control, with exciting melodies but hidden negative messages. The songs are filled with words that incite violence, promote meaningless, luxurious lifestyles, turning people into people who only chase after material things and forget their souls. Influential artists are used to spread this message, causing an entire generation to be sucked into a vortex of illusion, forgetting their true legacy. I see the media as being programmed to make us doubt ourselves. Television shows distort the images of strong people and great thinkers, turning them into jokes or causing them to be forgotten. I saw how spiritual leaders, true warriors, were marginalized while negative role models were glorified. I realized that this was not a coincidence. It is a carefully orchestrated plan to make us forget who we really are, to strip us of our pride and spiritual strength. But now I see the truth, and I know that this lie cannot continue forever. I see how an entire system has been created to prevent Black people from realizing their divine identity. I see the media as being programmed to make us doubt ourselves. But it's not just adults. I see Black children being taught the wrong way, being indoctrinated with ideas that keep them from ever realizing their true value. Textbooks ignore or obscure the role of their ancestors in history, referring to them only as oppressed people without mentioning their great achievements. Children grow up in classrooms where they do not see images like themselves in the pages of history books and are not taught that their ancestors were kings, prophets, and brilliant scholars. I see schools where teachers unintentionally instill in Black children the idea that they are inferior, that they have to work twice as hard to be taken seriously. I see scoring systems, standardized tests designed to fail. I see neighborhoods where schools are under-resourced, but children are surrounded by images of violence, of poverty, of despair. I see children growing up with dreams stifled before they can take shape. They are told that the only path to success is through sports or entertainment, while their intelligence and creativity are ignored. Natural talents in math, science, and art are suppressed because no one tells them they can reach further. But I also see a new generation rising, children who are beginning to realize the truth, young souls who refuse to accept what they have been taught. I see children rereading their history, asking questions, and searching for the truth. I see the light in their eyes as they realize that they are not just children abandoned by the system. They are descendants of great men. They will be the generation that breaks the cycle of lies. And I know I have to help them see the truth. Television shows distort the images of strong people and great thinkers, turning them into jokes or causing them to be forgotten. I see how spiritual leaders and warriors have been created to prevent Black people from realizing their divine identity. The perspective changed again. The space around me seemed to be torn apart. Strips of light swirled and suddenly disappeared, revealing a completely different world. I saw long streets filled with people, strong chants echoing in the air, hands raised high, no longer shaking, only determined. The eyes were fiery. There was no more fear, only unshakable faith. I saw Black men and women standing tall in the midst of resurgent cities. They no longer bow their heads, no longer walk in the darkness of oblivion. They carry in their hearts the true pages of history, the stories that their ancestors have kept deep in their souls. The churches echoed with the sounds of prayer, but this time they were not prayers for salvation, but powerful declarations of awakening. I see mothers holding their children in their arms, whispering in their ears the truth about their ancestors, about the people who once led and created great civilizations. I see children looking at their faces in the light of knowledge, no longer doubting themselves but understanding that they are descendants of great men. Statues of oppressors were pulled down, replaced by sculptures honoring the truth. The distorted books were burned, replaced by restored documents, and the stories were told exactly as they had existed. A wave of awakening spread, like a fire lighting up everywhere, unable to be extinguished. I see strength in them, not the strength of hatred, but the strength of knowledge, of love, and of solidarity. A nation is rising up, not to seek revenge, but to restore what is rightfully theirs. And in that moment, I understood that I was also a part of this. I couldn't just stand by and watch. Jesus looked at me, his eyes filled with wisdom and kindness. You have seen the truth, but what do you do with it? You cannot keep it to yourself. You have a responsibility to help others awaken. I swallowed hard, feeling pressure, but also a mission being placed on my shoulders. But how can I help them? I'm just an ordinary person. Jesus smiled gently. No one is normal when they carry the truth. Start by telling what you have seen. Don't be afraid when the truth is opposed, because light always overcomes darkness. Tell your story. Share it with those around you. He raised his hand, and before my eyes appeared images of people struggling to find the truth. Some are rereading the history of their ancestors. Some are guiding the next generation about their true identity. There are children who are no longer being fed lies, but are learning about the greatness they have inherited. Education is the key. You must help them open their eyes. Use your voice. Communicate what you have seen. Encourage them to ask questions, seek what is hidden, and never accept the lies the world imposes on them. I nodded, feeling a new source of strength flowing through my veins. This is not just a message, but a mission. I was no longer just a witness. I had to become a torchbearer. I felt my heart beating strongly. I am no longer afraid. I understood that I had to return. My eyes opened. The sound of machinery in the hospital rang in my ears. I felt my own breath, felt life returning to me. But this time, everything was different. I have awakened. I can't go back to my old life. I can't continue living in ignorance like before. My heart burned with a new fire, a fire of truth, of a mission that I could not ignore. I have to do something. I must change this. I am no longer the quiet girl in the kitchen, enduring endless oppression and fatigue. I have seen the truth. I have heard the call. Now I carry with me the memories of forgotten souls, of a distorted history, of a rising people. I will be part of this awakening. I will tell my story. I will speak up. I will break the chains of lies and bring the light of truth to those who are still in darkness. My life will no longer revolve around the meals served in restaurant kitchens. It will be a fight for justice, for identity, for the freedom my ancestors deserved. I took a deep breath, feeling the vitality flowing through every cell in my body. This is not just an awakening. This is a new beginning, a mission that I willingly accept.